Good morning. Thank you for being here. Speaking just to a camera is a little bit less satisfying, so I love seeing faces. So how are you doing? Reverend Abasa called me or emailed me probably about 2 weeks ago, and asked me to just give you some comments, some ideas, and I'm sure it's no surprise to you that given our current situation right now, a lot of us are feeling fear. Fear, and it's not just one big enemy that we're afraid of right now. There's lots of fears. Fears of getting sick or worse, fear of someone we love getting sick, fear of getting someone sick, fear of offending someone, fear of being shamed or being treated poorly, fear of what's to come and when is this going to change? And if you haven't thought of any of those fears before, you're welcome. I'm just here to be a blessing. Now, when we feel afraid, we act in ways to get back to safety. It's how God made us. There's design and function in that. And I want to give you an example. So, in the early 2000s, in February, I pulled my car up to a gas station to fill my tank with gas. And so, I got the process started, but it's February in Colorado, so it's cold. Right, so I'm going to get back in my car. I don't anymore, but then I did. I got back in my car to stay warm, and I heard this kind of gushing sound after a little while, the liquid hitting the ground. Well, it turned out the automatic shutoff valve stopped working. It didn't work. So there was gasoline pouring out onto the ground that I'm paying for. Okay, so that's really what was key in my head. So I quickly came out of the car, but it's February in Colorado, which also means it's not slippery. Well, it might have been slippery, but it's also very dry. Does anybody else get cracks on their hands around that time of year? Yeah. It was dry, so I carried with me a lot of electricity. Yes, you're seeing. I'm in the future too. So I went to grab the nozzle, the gas nozzle, but with that, electricity was discharged, and a spark lit the fumes, which lit the fuel, which lit my car, which lit the pump, which lit the ceiling thing of the gas station on fire. So in that moment, my body reacted really before I knew what was happening, and I ran, away from the car, and got into the little store thing, and I asked the attendant, "Do you have a fire extinguisher?" And he said, "Not for anything that big." So he had called the fire department. The fire department came, they put out the fires, and we relaxed, right? I called my husband, I called my brother, I called my sister, I talked to lots of people about what happened, and we relaxed. But right now, fear isn't resolving, is it? We're in the part, but not the part. And it's not, our bodies aren't meant to hold on to fear this long. And stress has some long-term responses. And we have been feeling fear with no resolution, no exhale. So right now we're all trying to get back to safety as much as we can. And everybody's top priority is, when you go into a store, they tell you their top priority is? Yes, safety, absolutely. Because that is what we do when we're in danger. Our bodies react, our minds react in ways to get us back to safety. The problem is, safety is elusive. It's a little bit like happiness, right? When we make that our top priority, it becomes more like a mirage. When safety is our top priority, it hooks us into this kind of cycle that feeds the fear. So when I think I'm in danger, I'm going to scan the environment for risk and danger, right? Which keeps me more alert to and hooked into and increasing my fear so that I can act in ways that reduce my fear, but I'm kind of in this self-perpetuating motion. So I believe that God is moving. I believe it. And I believe in God's miraculous healing power that He can take away our fear. I have prayed that God would remove the spirit of fear from me, and he has. Now, God doesn't always move when I want him to move, but neither do my kids, so why would the God of the universe? But anyway, while we wait for him to move, for this to resolve, and I really do believe that God will resolve what is happening on all fronts. But while we wait, I have some little tricks to share with you to help, hopefully, to help us tolerate, but also maybe take a few steps away from fear, a few steps back. Okay, so trick number 1 is choose your top priority wisely. I've already said that it can become a mirage to have safety as our top priority. We want to have something as our top value or priority that will define our actions, that will guide our thoughts. So I want to give you some ideas. So love is a pretty big deal to God, it would seem. He talks about it a lot. When Jesus was asked what the most important commandment was, it was love the Lord your God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. So love, big deal to the disciples as well. It's how people know we follow Jesus, is love. So what if love is our top priority? The Proverbs talk about wisdom. Though it cost all you get wisdom. What if that were our top priority? How would that change things? How would that inform how we think and then how we feel? Any of the fruits of the Spirit, I think, are great ideas to have. So once we pick our top priority, let that be the filter that we think through. Let that be our focus. Let it be what we talk about with our friends. Okay, so let's say kindness is my top priority. Okay, is it kind to go for a walk with my friend? Okay, so, and this none of this is easy, right? Is it kind to my family? Is it kind to my friend? Is it kind to her family? So it takes some thought. Is it loving to confront someone in this whatever store? Is it, am I demonstrating self-control if I, fill in the blank? But then our minds are thinking in those terms as opposed to scanning for danger. Okay, so it's just a way to step a few steps back from fear. All right, trick number 2. This is based on the idea, have you ever heard the phrase, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results? Right. Okay, so anything therapeutic, any good therapy is going to have you do something different than you're normally doing. With fear, our compelling action is typically to avoid, to step back. I ran away from my car, right? So what I'm going to suggest is that we approach our fears. Okay, hold on. I know you're arguing with me in your head. Remember, we still want to be wise. It's said that St. Francis of Assisi, to show his love and devotion to God, went and kissed a leper on the mouth. I am not suggesting that you find someone with COVID and you kiss them on the mouth. But what I am saying with approach is maybe if you know someone who has tested positive, call them up, talk to them about what their experience was. Kind of get used to the idea, and this is, I think, one of the redemptive aspects of having cases go up in our county, which they have, is that we're closer to people who have had it, so we can find out what it was like for people. It's not just, well, my brother's friend, or my doctor's niece's, you know what I'm saying? It's someone that we know, so we can find out more. We can approach it. We can get more used to it, and that will help bring down the fear. Again, just a little bit. Okay, trick number 3 is to stay connected, and you guys have heard this. The fact that you guys are here and even logged in to watching the video tells me that you guys know that staying connected is a big deal. Being alone is going to just amp up the fear a lot. So we need each other to bring it down. So whether it's 2 people or 12 people, whatever your crew is, stay connected. I do want to just say just a few things about staying connected during this time. One is, let's use this time well. you know how a couple who is in a long distance relationship, do you guys know LDRs? That was the big thing when I was in college. When you're in a long distance relationship, it's like you have to have deeper conversations because you're on the phone. You can't just like fall into a physical relationship, which is far easier. Same now. Since we can't have maybe the nearness that we would like, what if we talked more deeply over the phone or over Zoom? What if we used our connection time, talking about what's important to us, what our struggles are, talking about theology, how to make it more practical in our lives, and going back to our top priority, how do I make this my top priority? How do I not live in fear? And making that like an important focus. Along the same lines, we want to avoid echo chambers. Have you guys heard this? This is somewhat newer to me. It's the idea when you're with someone that you agree with, and so then they say something, you agree, you say similar, they agree, so you're just kind of echoing back and forth. And we want to avoid that. The thing is, it's super easy. First of all, we tend to gravitate toward people who think like us because they're clearly right. I'm just saying. And when we get together, especially now, it's really easy to talk negatively about people who disagree with us because they're obviously wrong. And it's energizing at first because, I'm right, you're right. Clearly, we're right. But in the end, it's a soul drain. It's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for our community. So ask out loud. When you realize, things are echoing, ask out loud, I wonder why this is important to us, let's say. I wonder why this is important to them. So I'm going to do a little experiment. How many people here would say that they're reasonable by show of hands? Like, I'm fairly reasonable. Okay. Here's a little bit of information that I learned along the way, that if I were to ask people, another group of people who thought polar opposite of what you guys think, guess how many hands would go? All of them. Yes, we all are mostly reasonable. And I've learned this in marriage counseling. One person will tell me a very reasonable story about why the other person is unreasonable. But if you wait long enough to hear the other person's story, guess what? It's actually quite reasonable. I mean, unless there's psychoticism, then it's a different story. But most people are reasonable. So if we can wonder, even within our crew, now how would someone else find this reasonable? Because they do. Okay, let's kind of think through this. All right, it helps kind of cut down on that echo chamber. And then it also cuts down on the fear of other people, right? Because when we define other people as unreasonable, the fear gets kicked up a bit. All right, also, and this is a soapbox of mine, I'll try to keep it short, limit social media as much as possible. Social media is the junk food of relationships. It feels like you're getting full and getting what you need, but it is devoid of all the good that you need from connection. So limit it. It increases depression, anxiety, loneliness, oddly enough. It increases fear and hostility right now. So as much as you can, connect personally with your crew. And then finally, the last little bit of a trick I have for you is to say thanks. And, this is nothing new. Paul told us to say thanks in everything, to be grateful, to present our requests with thanksgiving to the Lord. And research also shows that over and over again. It improves our mood. So non-believing therapists all over the country will talk to people about keeping a gratitude journal, if they come to them struggling, which I just love. I love that God's truth, it comes out. So we do really need to be thankful for all that we have. The fact that we're here, so great. The fact that we're able, the fact that we have the capacity to be together. I know that entitlement is not something that anyone in Douglas County struggles with. So you can just tell your friends this, all right? You can just be helpful for them. That we need to take a step deeper into all that we have in this life. The fact that we have life, that God is our life, is something to be so grateful for. And I think that also being grateful, because sometimes we have to look for it, keeps us, our eyes watching for how God is moving. So that maybe when he does move, we won't miss it, right? It keeps us kind of watching for it. I do believe God is moving. I do believe he's increasing his kingdom, his rule, and his love. I do believe he's big enough to be moving even in these times. Isn't it amazing that he's big enough for that, but yet he also calls us by name? He knows us. So let's, as much as we can, take a few steps back from fear. I'm not going to step back because then I'll be flailing. But watch for what he's doing and wait for him to move. What is he up to?